Hey friends, welcome to episode 533 of the Mind What You Three Cents podcast. And um, this week's podcast is going to be different from usual podcasts. I've done a handful of tribute shows, including ones to professional wrestlers who have died through the years. We've talked about the Iron Sheik, superstar Billy Graham, Bray Wyatt, Terry Funk. Those all in the last year and a half, 2 years. I did a podcast where I memorialized and honored the memory of my mom the days after she passed away. This week I'm doing that with two individuals who uh, were good friends of mine who we lost back to back Thursday and Friday of last week. The first one is my buddy Todd Slinkard, who Todd and I grew up together the 80s. We were friends, met probably, I want to say we probably met in first or second grade at Brigham Woods Elementary School back in the day. And Todd was a class clown. He was someone that just always had people laughing, and except for the teachers, because I think sometimes the teachers got a little uh, aggravated with him. I can remember I actually laugh about it, still thinking about it. And this is 45 years later, or at least 40 something years later. Um, our art teacher was yelling at Todd about something. I don't know what it was. He was acting up and turned his back. The teacher did, and Todd made this face. And I can still see that face, and it makes it really legitimately. When I think about it, it makes me laugh. And I remember, Star Wars was a big thing that we were into and did a lot together. And Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, we were friends through that, cross country and track in high school, theater, drama in high school. But when we were kids, when we were like 10 years old, it was the summer of 1983. I'm good with dates for some odd reason, but I remember this very specifically. It was Todd and myself and two or three other friends, and we were having a sleepover at our house, at my house, and we had cable, and we were flipping through the channels late at night. I'm sure it probably wasn't as late as I'm remembering it in my head, um, but while flipping through the channels, we came across WWF wrestling, and I'm gonna guess this was probably a Monday or a Tuesday. Maybe it was the tail end of Tuesday Night Titans, or I don't know what show it was. I really don't remember, because at that time my wrestling fan was non-existent. This is actually the first WWF programming I remember watching, and so uh, there was an interview with George the Animal Steel, who was still very much a heel at this time, and he just kept repeating the words "kick." And we were fascinated by him because, of course, the way he looked, this bald guy, hair all over his body, green tongue, and just kind of deranged. And I can't remember if we watched the whole thing, the whole rest of the show. There were only two things from that show that I remember. The one being the George the Animal Steel bit, and then the second thing being Superfly Jimmy Snuka and the Magnificent Morocco engaged in their feud. And Morocco was standing outside the ring in a suit, spat at Superfly. Superfly dives over the top rope, lands on Morocco, starts beating him up, and rips that suit off of him. So those are the two things that I remember. And I was already kind of watching, but not 100% officially watching. But this was my introduction to the WWF, and I loved it. And I will always remember the fact that Todd was there and was a part of that, and we uh, became fans, and you know talked about wrestling and watched wrestling in those early years of my fandom. And then, of course, the years go by, and I mentioned things that we did in high school and hung out together, and remained friends. And even later in life, as adults on social media and on Facebook, Um, Todd sent me a message one day and he says, I need your address. Trying not to get the reflect. If you're watching, I'm trying to not get the reflection on this. And I'm like, okay. And I didn't ask why. I just sent it to him. And this autographed photograph of the Nature Boy Ric Flair came in the mail. He had come across an event or something and was able to get this for me. And of course, I framed it. It's been hanging, and you can see the blank spot on the wall in my office here at my podcast studio. Um, and now it has more meaning to me. I will always cherish it, remember it, and think about Todd when I look at that because it was an unexpected surprise, and that's how Todd was. He was just a kind-hearted, uh, often misunderstood, and someone who had a lot going on. Served our country. He was a good friend. He was, someone that cared about his friends and his family. And I'm going to miss, uh, you know, unexpectedly diagnosed with cancer in the fall of 2024, and nobody was really sure uh, how bad it was going to end up being. And then, kept in touch and heard from his family. And uh, it's just heartbreaking to lose someone like that because, I still consider I'm 51. I don't consider us old by any means, but here I've lost a friend, someone that I grew up with. And actually, Todd was the second. We had a friend uh, on January 1st, the start of the year, who passed unexpectedly. You know, now, granted, I have not talked or seen this friend in many years. So, uh, but still, someone that was in our circle and grew up with, lived in our neighborhood. It's sad. It's just really sad to start going through this stage of life, I guess. So I will always though think of Todd and remember him fondly in the times that we shared together. If you are watching, you see that I'm wearing the Podfather, I'm sorry, the Bodfather t-shirt given to me by Lane Austin, who was another good friend of mine. You will hear from other friends of Lane's in this podcast as we memorialize him. I met Lane. I went back and looked. We became Facebook friends in the fall of 2015, but I don't remember meeting Lane in person until early 2016 in March or so for the very first Stride Pro Wrestling show that Tyler had on. And Tyler and Lane had been friends for a long time. They met in high school. Uh, and I always thought that was cool that Tyler had friends, not just Lane, but also Sam Hamlin, who worked with us in Stride Pro Wrestling. And that friendship that Tyler and Lane had, I hung out with them after Stride shows. After the first few Stride shows, we were in Marion in the mall, and we would go to usually Applebee's or go someplace close by afterward and have dinner and just kind of sit and talk and relax. And those, a lot of times, the memories of those shows, the wrestling shows, either with AAPW or with Stride, was kind of what happened, not at the show, what happened afterward, or what happened backstage, in the locker room talking. And as the ring announcer, I didn't get to do a whole lot of that. And Lane, a lot of times, was the only referee. And so we spent a lot of time in the ring together, and we would kind of cut up and talk before the guys would come out and have their match, and it, it's weird thinking that he is no longer here either. Passed away on Friday. I got a message from Tyler telling me that Lane had died, and unexpected surprise. And I know Lane has had years of health issues. He is, some of you probably know, had diabetes. He went through a pancreas and kidney transplant in 2018. I would go and visited with him after that as he was recovering and just trying to be there for me because I'm not the best at keeping up and staying in touch and but it was an immediate, we were there for, or we were able to be there for him and provide some stuff and hang out and do things. And it really, you know, someone so young, so seemingly vibrant. And I always remember because Lane was like Jack. He was like the Jack referee. And that was my first impression of him. Like, this referee is in better shape than some of these wrestlers, a lot of these wrestlers. So, um, and I don't think he ever wrestled. I don't know for sure, but I think maybe some of his health problems precluded him from getting in the ring and actually wrestling. But man, uh, those conversations that we would have on show days and setting up and back in the first early days, the first year and a half or so of Stride, being at the mall, there was not a whole lot of setup because the ring got to stay set up and guys could go in there and practice and work out and have training. So get there early just to shoot the breeze. And Lane and I talked often at those shows, either during the show, before the show, and like I said, after the show, going and having dinner and just hanging out. So those are the things that I will miss, and hearing the passion and the love for his family that he would talk about them. And I know Lane had moved away for a while, and then he came back, and you know, I have not been the best at keeping up since he's been back, and honestly, uh, I'm having a hard time dealing with that part of this, is not reaching out and being more in touch with him. So I feel bad in that regard, and that's my own guilt, and that's my own thing that I have to deal with, and that's I think that's natural and normal. I think when we lose someone unexpectedly, that we wish we had done X, Y, Z, or we wish we would have done whatever, and we're all human, and you know these kinds of things, these kinds of situations present themselves, and we just do our best to continue on and live a life that will make our loved ones have gone away uh, proud, or carry on and do things in the spirit of that person, and I will do that. And Blaine was a huge fan, the Macho Man Randy Savage. When I had him on the podcast, we talked about his super fandom for Randy Savage, and he loved his family, he loved wrestling, and he loved working out and just you know being there for his friends. And I'm sad. I again was shocked when I heard the news, but instantly started thinking of the better times that we had when he was a surprise. He surprised everybody. I don't think it was too long after his surgery, because after he had this transplant, I mean, it's a major pancreas and kidney major surgery. Um, he had come back uh, to a wrestling show. Actually, just showed up in my Time Hop Memories today as I'm recording this on Sunday. He had come back to the show in West Frankfurt. I think it was in West Frankfurt. And he walked into the room, and I remember being like legitimately surprised and so happy and excited to see him. And we caught up, and again, like I said, we sat and took that selfie together, and just being able to reconnect and talk about wrestling. Mostly we talked a lot about wrestling, but we talked family, we talked friends, and you know future aspirations, goals, dreams, all that good stuff. And I know he wanted to referee on the big stage, and he had some opportunities where he was able to go and referee and do some other things, or referee in other areas. I know the folks at Cape Championship Wrestling welcomed him with open arms and loved him being around and being a part of their show. The fans loved him. I mean, how many referees do you know that have a T-shirt that they are having fans want to get their hands on. So just so many wonderful, fantastic memories. I hope that he has found peace. And, like I said, I opened this up to some other folks. So we're going to hear some thoughts from them, and then I'll be back to put a bow this episode.
Lane Farrell, Lane Austin, obviously a very important guy to me. I kind of want to tell a couple quick stories about Lane. I wearing the glasses, honestly, because I've tried to record this video 3 different times and I can't get through it. So most people probably don't realize this, or you may. I know he's been on this podcast before, but Lane actually has been a lifelong wrestling fan. As long as I've known Lane from high school, Lane loved wrestling. And a quick cool story that I don't know if a lot of people know about Lane. So Lane went to a neighboring high school. So I went to a school called NCOE, and he went to a school called El Dorado. And in Lane's senior talent show, he wrestled. So they set up 4 chairs around the outside, and Lane was the baby face, and he went by the name Luscious Lane, and he came out with a pink boa around his neck and sunglasses, and they put and they put on a wrestling show in front of the school, and it was pretty hokey and what you'd imagine from some 17-year-old boys at a school. But Lane took a chair shot, and the cool story about that was they got called down and told they couldn't do the chair shot, and they're like, okay, well, we'll take it out, because they had to rehearse it before, I guess, or whatever the story was. But anyway, my friend has that video. If anybody ever wants to see it, it's pretty neat. But Lane, he came out as Luscious Lane, and he lost a match. From a chair shot, and that's how much or how long Lane has loved wrestling. Another good moment of mine, a favorite moment of mine, is when Lane started reffing. When you first get into the business, you don't really get booked. You can for free. There's a lot, but anyway, he was struggling, and so I was getting him booked, and we were going places, and I was taking him, and hey, I got this ref, and I would kind of negotiate his pay. I'd negotiate what he was going to get, and when I did bigger shows, bigger places, and so Lane calls me one time, and he's like, hey, I got me and you booked, and I won't say where or who the guy was with, but Lane was like, hey, I got us booked, and we're doing a 3-shot deal. This guy's putting on 3 shows, and I never heard of the guy, and I was like, does this check out? It's like, oh yeah. And he now back, he was so excited about it. I remember being like, okay, he told me to talk to this guy. And so anyway, the first night we show up, and I realized pretty quick that we were not going to get the pay that was promised to us, and supposedly, going to give us some, in the wrestling world, trans and a hotel room, and a nice chunk of pay for both of us. And the first night, there wasn't enough people in that crowd to probably pay for the concession stand. And I get my envelope, and I open it up, and it has 12 $1 bills in it. And so I kind of look at Lane, and he's white as a ghost, and his envelope had 10 $1 bills in it. And the guy told us, I'll get you the next night. It's a big crowd. We had all these pre-sales. Next night we'll get you. Well, there was no room either. There was no hotel room. So me and Lane slept in my car in an Arby's parking lot. And we got up the next morning, and we paid for a gym pass, a day pass at a gym, and we went to the gym, and $10 a piece. So between the two of us, we had $2 left over, not including our food. And we show up to the venue, and there's nobody there. No ring, no nothing. The guy just up and canceled the show and didn't tell anybody. And so we had sat there all day and hung out and went out to eat and did all this stuff, and then drove back. So about a month or two later, Lane messaged me, and he's like, "Hey man, I got us another booking. It's a for sure thing." And I was like, nope, Lane, we're not doing that. And the last thing I want to say about Lane is I got to spend a little time with his son last night. This is recorded on Saturday night. And the one thing his son said to me was, seeing all the posts about my dad, a lot of people loved him. I'm not going to go into logistics or backstories. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody has things that they do they regret. But Lane was a really good guy. And what I'm getting at is, if you knew Lane, and a lot of you maybe watching this or listening probably don't know him, but he just wanted to be loved, and he loved being loved, and he loved being cared for, and he wanted to make everybody happy. And when his son said that, obviously wearing glasses and my eyes are puffy, I've cried a lot the last few days, but for me, I've cried because of all the Facebook posts and seeing all the love that's been given and shared about him, and that would make him happy. And knowing that his son saw that, and his son recognized that, made me realize, how awesome that is. And I've loved seeing it, and I know he would have too. And and he's definitely going to be missed. He was obviously like a brother to me, and if you know brothers, you fight with brothers, and me and Lane we're no short of fighting and arguing. But as far as in the wrestling world, you weren't going to find a better guy. You weren't going to find a better ref. You weren't going to find somebody who cared as much as he did. And he didn't get to do it. He had health issues the last few years. But man, the time that he was in it, he made such a positive impact. And, him getting to go on a tour with Earl Hebner, I don't think a lot of people realize how much that meant to him, how awesome that was for him, and getting to ref at OVW, it was very important to him, and I know that he genuinely loved being in the wrestling business and being a part of the match, and thank you to so many people, wrestlers and people that made him welcome and made him part of the locker room, and made his dream come true. To go back to what I started with, in high school, there was not a bigger wrestling fan than Lane, and I know being a ref was probably the best years of his life, and thank you to the fans and everybody. We miss him and we love him, and stay tuned. We're gonna have a Lane Austin wrestling fundraiser, so working on the details of that. Going to talk to all the local companies to see who wants to get involved, and just have a fun night and honor Lane and 1, 2. So love you, Lane. Miss you, buddy.
Hey everybody, it's your old friend Sam Hunter saying hi. How you doing? Tragedy recently befell us as our good friend Lane Austin Farrell has passed away. Truly heartbroken by this, and really at a loss for words at the moment. Lane, I, and Tyler had worked together at Dairy Queen in our youth, and Lane had always been a good friend to me. And I really don't know what to say right now, except I just hope you're at peace, Lane. Rest in peace, my friend, and God bless you. We'll see you soon, buddy.
Stride Pro Wrestling Heavyweight Champion Farmer Billy Hills here. I wanted to share this video, one of my favorite moments with Lane, and it's of Jeff Cobb dumping me on my head, basically. His reaction to it was just the best, and I feel it captures who Lane was as a person. He was very over the top, energetic, and genuine, because that was an absolute genuine reaction if you're watching it. We love you, Lane. We miss you already. And we will definitely see each other down the road.
When I got the news that Lane Austin had passed away, my heart sank. And, me and Lane wasn't really close or anything, but in my short time that I was in professional wrestling as a referee and as a wrestler, Lane taught me a whole lot about how to work the ring. Every time you saw that man, he had a big smile on his face. He always had his hand out wanting to shake yours, or having his arms out wanting to hug your neck. Lane Austin was a one-of-a-kind person, and they come along once in a generation, if you ask me. Lane, thank you so much for what you taught me in the art that is professional wrestling. You made the Iron Man referee, Duke Randall. Rest easy, sir. You've more than earned your rest.
Well, as you can hear, as you can tell, Lane was loved by many. And again, like I said, I hope that he has found peace wherever he may be. And my thoughts and prayers go out to his family, his friends, his fans, those of us who were impacted and touched by him. Pay it forward. Do something nice for someone. Wear black and white stripes someday. I lose my sense of being able to speak in situations like this, because it is not easy to go through this. And so, hug your loved ones. Tell them you love them. Tell your friends that you love them. Normalize that. It's okay. And I love all my friends. And I don't say it. I probably don't act it as often as I should, but I love you guys from Stride who are listening to this, whether fans or friends. I love you. And I hope that you're all staying well, and we'll get through all of this. And I want to just thank everyone for the kind words on social media, because I have talked about this, losing 2 friends in 2 days. It means a lot to hear folks. So take care. We'll catch up again next week, hopefully with happier topics and things. But I thought it was important to remember 2 people who I held in high regard, and who were part of my wrestling journey, part of my wrestling fandom. And that was the thing too with both Todd and with Lane. I feel like they believed it, and they were supportive of the sometimes silly dream of being a wrestling announcer, being a wrestling commentator, getting to have those opportunities. So I'm eternally grateful for that as well. And I hope that they both rest in peace, remember their families, remember their friends during these tough times and the times that will come down the road that you're hit with that grief and that painful of sadness, because it is inevitable. That's the one thing I've learned really about 18 months since my mom's passing, that the grief never really goes away. It comes and goes, it ebbs and flows. Some days are better than others, but you're always impacted by that. So if you've experienced loss, a significant loss like a parent, friend, child, a brother, a sister. So no matter who it is that you're mourning or lost, I wish, pray, and hope for the best for you, your journey. So thanks again for being a part of this week's show, and we will see you next time.